It's 12 o'clock on Sunday, April 6th, 2014. And if I check my phone, pull up this handy dandy app, it's a countdown app, it tells me that I have 69 days, 8 hours, 29 minutes, and 26, 25, 24, 23 seconds until I graduate. And in order to do that, I have to have a capstone project, which I've been working on for 3 years now. 3 years ago, we created an idea based off an English noir class a couple of us were taking at the time, and we had the option of either writing a noir story of our own or creating a noir film. There was a group of us, and we got together and we said, okay, let's make a film. And so we did. We got together. It was probably sometime in May. I had just moved into the apartment for the first time, and I'd been there for about a week, I think. And then we were like, okay, let's just take a whole day and film. And we did. So we got up at like 11 in the morning and went over to our first location and set up, and we filmed until about 3 o'clock in the morning, which was crazy. And it was guerrilla style filmmaking. We didn't plan it. We didn't, get permission to use any of our locations. Our props were all what we could kind of gather out of our own homes, and we basically just faked it the whole time. But we had a lot of fun. I mean, we were definitely wore out by the end of the morning. A little frustrated, but I think overall, I think our co-producer Chris kind of summed it up when he said it was one of the best things he had ever done, was just taking that whole day. I think it was a Sunday as well, fittingly enough. But we just taken that whole day, and we had a blast trying to film and trying to overcome some things that we hadn't ever anticipated having to come across during that filming process. I mean, we literally just had one camera and a microphone set up and no boom pole. It was like one of those like handheld microphones that you got the singers kind of doing that with, and this really kind of shoddy cord to connect it to the camera, and it just didn't work. The sound was horrible. And at one point, we thought we didn't even have sound. We were going through the editing, and so we were like, crap, we don't have a movie. We don't have a final. But we still had the footage, and so what Chris and I did was we sat in the EMDA Center, and we probably spent like 6 hours trying to figure out what to do instead, and we put together a teaser trailer for the actual film, as if we were going to have an actual film, and threw some music over it and did a couple of versions, a couple of different cuts of it, picked the best cut, and showed that to the class. And really felt, it was horrible, but we felt good about it. And so we decided to do it again, only this time bigger and better, and we would expand the script, and it would be even more noir and even better production quality, and we'd put, more than just, a day's worth of filming into it. And that ended up turning into 3 years worth of production, which we really did not anticipate. It's been a rough process, and it's made even more rough by the fact that I've just made the decision to cease production on 12. This project's been jinxed and doomed from the start. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Well, no one's been arrested yet, and now that we're ceasing production, nobody's going to get arrested, hopefully. Although we did think that we had a stolen car earlier today. Not that we stole the car, but that somebody stole the car with the audio equipment in it. So that was a big scare, and I'm still not even sure of what the story is there, but I think our audio guy got his car back, and his equipment back too, which is really, at least that went right. I can't say the same about the day of filming we put in before that. Even just that one day of filming is kind of indicative of the whole project and how it went.
How did that work out for you? It went swimmingly, you know?
The equipment, I had thought the cameras were charged, the batteries were charged. I'd plugged them in the morning, and thought that by the time we would be ready for filming in the late afternoon, early evening, a good 7 or 8 hours later, that the batteries should be charged. Batteries were pretty much dead. The tripods were barely functioning. The sandwich boards were working. That was, we were going to do a couple of murder scenes, and you have to have sandwich boards to let people know that you're filming so that they don't panic. And those were working, except for my horrible handwriting on them, and I never did get a picture of those yeah, I never did get a picture of those. The audio worked. I assume it works. I haven't looked at the files yet, but I trust the audio guy. He actually does this as a job, I think. I don't know. I could be just totally off base there. But I think the audio went okay. The footage, I've been looking through some of the footage from yesterday. I just now was able to bring myself to do that after a night of total misery and defeat. But some of the footage looks okay. The problem was I was trying to technically be responsible for 2 cameras at once and direct and troubleshoot at the same time, because basically it was a 2-person crew, me and the audio guy, and then the co-producer who really doesn't have any film experience, but he's super enthusiastic and super willing to pitch in when he can, but he doesn't know a lot of the technical aspects of filmmaking. And then it's the cast on top of that. So a lot of times when we didn't have an actor in a scene, I would have them either running the other camera and just, just push the start button, push the stop button, or running Slate, Slate, and trying to teach them how to do that while trying to do what I was supposed to do at the same time, and then keep an eye on actors and keep an eye on just the set and the location itself to make sure we weren't disturbing anyone, or we weren't, a couple times we're in the middle of the road with the cameras trying to get the right framing, and make sure we get out of the way when the cars want to get by, and things like that. So it was an interesting kind of juggling act. I think in a YouTube video I have for our Gin and Whiskey Productions YouTube page, I did a little video kind of promoting 12, and I started listing off a lot of the responsibilities I would have for this film, and I used a hat analogy where I wore a lot of hats. I'm the director of the piece. I'm also the producer and the script editor and the casting director and, scheduling wrangler and editor and distributor, and I wear a lot of hats. See? Hat. Even Ruby's impressed. It was kind of goofy, but it's still an apt description of what I was trying to do. I was trying to wear too many hats at once, and I ended up just being frazzled, especially after a long day of doing a bunch of other stuff. One of the big problems, I think, is that I have so much on my plate, and so does the rest of the cast and the crew, that finding the time to dedicate to this project. Because I think we were all really convinced this was going to be a fantastic project, and that it would be, it could really be something really good. And I think we all firmly believed that, but we all had so much going on at the same time. Right now, literally tomorrow is the start of the Emerging Media Convention, which I've been a big part of. I'm also helping to put together the Student Film Festival, and trying to do those 2 things at once is hard enough, and then add the fact that there's 3 weeks until the submission deadline for the Student Film Festival, and films need to be submitted by then. It's quite a task to try and keep all of that straight in my mind, even. And so I think the pressure of trying to do all those things and trying to do it in a rush because none of the cast and the crew have schedules that really work with each other. Trying to do that, I think it's part of what's hurt this film is that we aren't able to be a full-time production crew. I mean, if we were able to be a full-time production crew and we didn't have anything else to do, I mean, this would have been done a long time ago. But like I've said, we've been pretty much doomed from the start. I mean, we've had pretty much, I mean, I think funding is a big issue that we didn't have just because we didn't have any funding and we knew that from the start. So we knew that anything we wanted to do, we would have to do out of our own pocket in that regard. But I think we came up with a story and with a script where we really wouldn't need any of that. I mean, we could have gone with some fake blood and tried to do some special effects, but I think that we decided to do the creative editing sort of thing and come up with a better story that way instead of trying to do hokey effects that we don't know how to do. But other than that, I mean, we've had casting, I think the number one and the number two issues that we had were casting and scheduling of the cast and the crew. With casting, I mean, we started, originally we had two characters originally, Carter and Rachel, and then we expanded that to add to the story with the third character that we didn't ever name. And that was for the English class final. And then we decided to do the film for real. It became, well, I mean, I guess before we technically had the four characters anyway. I don't know what I'm talking about. Which is really bad for the director to say that they don't know what they're talking about, but it's yeah. I guess that's where we are at that point, is that. But, I mean, we have 5 characters. We have 4 college students and a murderer. And we had actors for all of those positions. And scheduling them became difficult, to say the least. But we had kind of a revolving door when it came to Carter, Rachel, and the murderer, the dark figure, as we called him. And it was just, as soon as we would get one person cast for one character, another character's actor would leave, or the schedule for them would get too complicated. And it's, I mean, as a student, you know, I mean, we all get that, we've all been there. So it's hard to ask more of people's time, especially with something that we, as a gin and whiskey productions crew, we're kind of rowdy. At one point we had scheduled 4 scenes, and it was just in an apartment, and it probably took us like 5 hours to film just because we probably spent, you know, 2.5 of those hours just goofing around and trading jokes back and forth. I mean, and that was during setup, so, I mean, you know, we weren't completely useless that whole time. But, you know,
I hope we recorded that.
with outtakes and with, you know, camera equipment failures and oopses, all kinds of oopses that we had. It just, filming for us as a production crew, we haven't streamlined that. We're really distractible as a production crew. And as a director, I should really control that. But I did it for the outtakes.
Where were you filming?
We're just gonna walk through it to make sure that we can do this without laughing.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Nope.
Thanks.
You bitch. Why don't you just keel over and die so I can get what's owed to me?
What's owed to you?
Place, I believe it calls it a foods library. Foods library. I'm a grocery store, you douchebags! I'm sorry
Want me to
to
go from this side? You
douchebags.
want to this
I
side?
have low blood sugar.
Whatever side you think's
So
more.
what you're telling me is, you threw these things in boiling hot water, they shriek, they turn red, and they die.
And then you can eat them?
This is gonna be hard. Yes.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
the most
Healthy.
Can
Ever heard of my
we-
entire
I'm
life?
gonna try that.
High five.
No, he's got vodka in his hand. He does that.
Something or
Hold in the bucket. Is this good for soup? No. That's a yes.
I mean, if the egg went down, I could.
It was just, you know, we just keep it rolling for the outtakes and the behind the scenes bloopers, and you know, stuff for an imaginary DVD we'll never have. But we didn't have that luxury this past Friday, which I think the framing suffered for it, the cinematography suffered for it, the actors. I mean, I was stressed, and the actors were stressed, and the audio guy was stressed, and we were just all stressed, and it made for a shooting environment that was chaotic and not well put together, which sucks. And then the other thing too, with adding to the chaos of the way we were filming, we also had a weird schedule to film with, because we had one actor who was able to be there earlier in the evening, then had to be missing for a good chunk of the time we were filming, and then would come back towards the tail end of it. And it took us longer to get set up than I would have liked. And then I went to get food for the crew to kind of thank them, and that took longer than expected. And by the time we had gotten all the equipment properly set up, it was time for that actor to go. And so, I mean, we were able to do one take of that shot, but I was too busy with the camera to really, and the framing and the lighting was horrible. There was nothing we could do. We didn't have a lighting kit. The light bulbs in my living room went out, and we only really had Christmas lights and a couple of overhead lights, but it was really dark in there, and the footage just looks pretty bad. So,
Carter, come on, let's go.
I haven't finished my drink yet.
Come on, I'm not kidding. I'm going for a smoke then.
I guess some people just can't handle their liquor. Yeah, just another day in paradise.
Locations have also been a big issue for us. We named the film after one of the actors' apartments. He lived in number 12, and it was kind of a running gag for us. We at one point were gonna have a bunch of clocks and a couple of scenes of clocks where, you know, like all the murders would take place at 12, like 12 noon or 12 midnight, and we would show a clock or a cell phone time or a timer or something, and they would all, you know, be 12, and that would match with the apartment, and that would, you know, it would be kind of a running joke thing. But then when we lost that actor, we lost that location. And so we kind of had to struggle with, okay, what is 12 to this film now? And I think the decision we came to was that I live in number 2, and we would just tape a really bad number 1 on like a piece of paper in front of it and go, hey, look, it's 12. It's just they live in such a kind of crappy apartment that they don't even have the proper numbers for their address. And we thought that would work with the characters really well, because one of the characters was like both characters, Carter and Rachel, who would be living in apartment 12, were kind of falling into disrepair, so having their actual apartment falling into disrepair would be a kind of a cool thing. So we created, this is how we worked with this project. We created backstory to match something that happened in filming, or in recasting or location changes or anything like that. We basically adapted the story to fit the needs of everything else, which is really not the right way to do it. But it did create, I think, some interesting changes to our script. I think, if I remember right, it took us 6 or 7 months to come up with a script, like a proper script. It just kept going through iteration after iteration, and I think we ended up on like draft 14 at one point, which I was frustrated with for a little while, because it's like it was going to be like a 15-minute film, so it's like, why do we need 14 versions of a 15-minute film? But I mean, it really, especially when the changes in the first couple of drafts were really pretty small. Format and phrasing to make it sound a little more natural, mostly. But then as we started getting into the later versions of the draft, the story started changing radically. We added in scenes to clarify things. We added in characters to add in things. At one point, we added a character named Vince. Well, I mean, in order to explain Vince, I have to explain what happened with Carter and Rachel. We went through a couple of actors for Carter, and at one point they started looking younger and younger. They had more of a baby face with each actor that we cast, and it wasn't anything that was intentional. It was just, who showed up to the auditions and who had the time frame and the time flexibility to work with us. And then we started auditioning Rachel's, and we had a couple of wildly different folks that we auditioned for Rachel throughout the years. And the last person that we got for the part was a little older than we had originally considered for Rachel. But then it sort of worked in a way, because it brought a new dynamic to the relationship between Carter and Rachel, where Rachel was this very domineering figure in Carter's life, and she was very controlling and very high maintenance, and Carter was very submissive towards her, and it was anything that she said went. It was her word was law. And it brought an interesting dynamic to have a younger looking Carter and an older looking Rachel, and to kind of play on visually on that that difference between them, that dichotomy, especially because the character of Carter was much more mature than the character of Rachel. And so having them be these opposites, we thought really kind of added an extra something to the script. I mean, even when Carter and Rachel were played by actors of basically the same age, it never made sense why Carter would put up with what Rachel was doing. I mean, we weren't entirely sure that the message we were trying to convey there was going to be conveyed. And so we introduced the character of Vince, which is Carter's friend. And we used Vince basically to have Carter voice exactly why he stays. Or not exactly why he stays, but to sort of protest on behalf of us to the audience, going, yeah, we know there's a difference there. We know that you're picking up on this. We're not ignoring it for the sake of anything. This is part of the story now. And you don't need to know that it was thought of towards the end of production. But then we were also experiencing trouble casting our we cast a dark figure, and we were very happy with that, but his schedule got complicated, especially with the rest of the cast's schedule. And so we wanted to think of a backup plan in case he wasn't able to make our last-minute filming dates. And we decided that it would be interesting if Carter's friend Vince, who we wrote to be this very charming and sort of open and, funny guy, basically, if Vince ended up being the hired killer, which we thought would just add a plot twist. The plot was predictable. You knew kind of pretty much what was going to happen from the beginning. But we thought the ride would be worth it, even if it was pretty predictable. But having that plot twist where the murderer was Vince, we thought was really kind of a good idea, if we needed to go down that route. And we filmed some of that just in case, because we had some unexpected time on our hands in the filming. It wasn't getting dark quite when I was thinking it was going to get dark. And the murders we really couldn't have happen in broad daylight in an urban setting. And so we filmed a couple of yeah, I looked at the co-producer and I said, okay, your scene's up. We're just gonna do the stuff with Vince and Carter now. And he kind of gave me this panicked deer in the headlights look, like, what are you doing to me? But he stepped up to the plate, and it took us 3 takes to eventually get to a spot where it was pretty comfortable for him, or at least I mean it came off the way we wanted it to in the script. And yeah, I think that was one of the scenes that actually went right from the get-go. I mean, from the time span of writing to filming, that scene actually was one that we were pretty much able to accomplish, which is cool. The murders, not so much. We had we submit our violence permits a couple of days before the filming shoot. You're technically supposed to submit those 4 days before you shoot, but I hadn't had a confirmation from barely any of my actors at that point, so why schedule something like that when you're not even sure you're going to have actors? But we confirmed the actors somehow by a miracle. A broken down car and class reorganizations later. Everybody was ready to go, and then I was like, so we don't necessarily have a go-ahead from campus security or the police. So I had to walk down to the office like a half hour before we were filming and go, what's the status on that? Like, I know we didn't submit that within quite the time frame it's supposed to be done in, but we were kind of hoping that nobody else is really filming and that you might have just had a chance to take a look at that and approve that. And we did get the approval, but we never actually got to shoot those scenes because it started raining.
No, we gotta go. Oh, yeah, go. Camera one, rolling.
Camera
Audio
2 rolling, audio rolling, action.
Dude, I hate this shitty gig, man. What do you think, man? No shit. Dude, seriously, like, our boss said the other day, like, dude, you need to, like, put your head down and do what you need to do. And whatever, man. I'm tired of it.
How'd that work out for you?
Okay, so he basically, I said, I'm gonna keep this shitty job just so I can go through college. That's pretty much what I said. Not so many words, but that's what I said.
Cut. I was hoping they were going to go the other way.
No, even when they pulled up, we heard
It
them.
was too much. Okay. I would be okay with just a little bit of hearing because it's an urban area, but too much. Is it gonna be too wet for the boom?
No, but we gotta hurry.
Okay.
As soon as this car goes by,
And everybody's gonna be coming home. It's probably that time.
Yeah.
Shit. I'm telling you, this fucking project is cursed. And I might have been able, if we hadn't had the need for audio, I might have said just continue to film in the rain because, Oregon and rain, that's cool, that's awesome. It's accurate. But you can't take a boom pole and a shotgun mic out in the rain and try and get decent audio that way and not ruin the equipment. I mean, because I could have covered the cameras in like a Safeway bag where I've got an actual rain protective cover for one camera. But you can't do that with a microphone. So we ended up cutting the production time short. And that was pretty much when I knew it was the end of this project. I knew that the 2 actors that I was supposed to wrap that night, I didn't even get to one's murder, and we never got the scene really nailed down where I needed all 4 of the actors, and it wasn't going to work. I was not going to be able to call them back, and they had been in it for at least 2 of the 3 years. So it wasn't fair to them to keep saying, hey, you need to come back, hey, you need to come back, when they had other things to do. So, and then trying to schedule everything else. I knew it was the end of the film. Which, that was a blow. I think that was hard for at the very least for Chris and I, because this thing really was a special project for us, and we really had a lot of hopes for it. We really wanted it to be in the Student Film Festival. I had plans. I was hoping to submit it to the Wizard World Portland Comic-Con Festival. It was the first year they were opening up submissions for a film festival up in Portland, and I thought that would have been really cool to see our film there. But that submission due date was in December of 2013, and we didn't even have major roles cast at that point. We had just lost some actors, and it was near the winter holidays, and I knew we weren't going to get anyone in at that time. It was going to have to wait until the next term. So we missed that deadline. And then the Ashland Independent Film Festival deadline was around that time too, and we weren't going to make that. So our last kind of chance was the Student Film Festival date, and that's 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now. April 23rd. It's the 6th. Do you do the math? I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a mathematician. I don't do math. But I think because I am involved in the making of the Student Film Fest, and we're going to be filming for that next week, and I've got the Emerging Media Convention this week. That's a whole week of those 3 weeks that I'm losing, and there's not enough time to film and edit on top of work and school and conventions and festivals. So I'm tired. I'm sick of this project. I've said it a couple times where I actually do hate this project. And it's not the project itself, it's the process and the fact that every time we try and do something, and every time we finally think that we've got an opportunity to do it right, or even just do it at all, something goes wrong. I'm tired of the project. And I think everyone else is too. So it's time to throw in the hat on it and see what footage we can salvage and what we can make of it. I mean, the problem is that I've still got a capstone requirement to fulfill, and I feel like my last chance to get a film in any film festival is this film festival, so I have to have something, and I've got to find a way to take the footage that we put so much, we struggled with. We put a lot of hope and frustration into what we do have. We've got to find a way to use it somehow, not let it go to waste. I mean, because that was a lot of frustration to not end up with a product at all. One of our actresses and I went to go see a film tonight. It's the Ashland Independent Film Festival this week, and I had never been, and on top of losing 12, I couldn't take the salt in the wound that is not ever attending the Ashland Film Festival as a student filmmaker in Ashland. I needed to do that, so she volunteered to go with me, and we went and saw Mistaken for Strangers. Say hi to Ruby, the namesake of one of the 12 characters. But anyway, we saw Mistaken for Strangers, which is a film about two brothers. One who's pretty famous because he's in a indie rock band that's made it big, and then his brother, who was supposed to be their roadie on the tour, only he was terrible, like really bad. And he was trying to be a roadie and trying to make a film at the same time, and it just didn't work. So he ended up just making the film, and he felt, I mean, I think it was interesting the timing because he was struggling with his film, and I'm struggling with 12. And what direction to go in at this point. And in class, we've been talking a lot about proceed or pivot points. And basically the idea is you'll reach a point in a project, in any project of any kind, and you can either keep going on the track you're going and just keep plowing on through, or you can pivot and go in a different direction, go on a different track, and make something different out of it, or do something different. And I think 12, as it was, is a dead end, and we have no choice but to pivot. Otherwise, it's been a waste for all of us. So, and I think in Mistaken for Strangers, that's the point the director found himself in, was he thought he was just doing a documentary on his brother's band and on the tour and tour life and stuff like that. And then when he got fired as a roadie, it became a film that really examined his relationship with his brother and his relationship with his work as a filmmaker. So it inspired me to pivot with, and be done with 12, but to pivot in this project, in this capstone project, and to pivot with this capstone project, and to kind of chronicle the process that we went through, and really kind of examine what went wrong and how, and kind of go meta on it and go, this is a film about making a film that never happened. We'll see if it works. I guess if you're watching this, it worked. We did something with it. And you're probably sick of hearing my voice by now. So, yeah, we'll see. I guess the fate of 12 is still kind of in the air, technically. I mean, I don't have the authority to really kind of shut it down at the moment. And maybe the producer, but I'm not like the executive producer. Like, you know, if it was like a television studio and the producer just said, you know, we're done, I think the people with the money would probably be pretty upset with that. In this case, the people with the not money, but with the power to let me graduate or not graduate in 69 days, 7 hours, 52 minutes, and 30, 29, 28, 27 seconds, might not let me graduate, and I want to graduate. So I need a capstone, and this is the pivot. This is the alternative project, the meta-analysis in film of a doomed film.
Audio rolling.
Action. And cut.